Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today is the start of a brand new ranked season, so I'll be playing a couple more matches with the dual weather team that I featured in the previous episode, linked down in the description below. It's been a couple of days, so I wanted to just quickly talk about some things, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps in the description below, and thank you so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, please share support by leaving a like, I'd really appreciate it. So first of all, if you haven't seen, I will be part of the talent team for Worlds in a couple of weeks over in London. I'm not commentating this year, but I'm actually going to be filling in for a new role, kind of like an analyst style role, where I'll be going over analysis after matches are over, conducting player interviews, and yeah, just doing fun things that outside of just, commentating the battles themselves. So I'm excited for this new opportunity. I haven't really been able to do something like this before, and I think it's a nice way to kind of expand my skill set, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I don't think it would have been possible without all the support from you guys and the community in general, so I'm really grateful for all of you. I really hope to meet a lot of you over in London in person in a few weeks, but if not, thank you for tuning into the channel as always, and also for supporting the live tournaments and the streams as well, so really excited for that. The other big piece of news to talk about, of course, is the Series 13 rule set announcement, which is absolutely crazy. It's the first time in VGC history that mythical Pokemon are going to be allowed, and so, for me, I have literally never used some of these Pokemon before, or even, tried them out, or know their, stats or movesets at all, and so content from, September, October-ish, it's going to be really wild, and I have to say I'm really looking forward to it, because I was expecting to just play Series 12 for another 2 or 3 months, before Scarlet and Violet comes out, so lots of exciting content to look forward to on this channel. I'm actually going back to school in the fall as well, so there'll be a lot of things to balance, but I'm looking forward to it, and as always, yeah, thank you for coming in, for watching everything on this channel, so yeah. And then the third thing is, I've been doing some new kind of Pokemon content at Beast Coast Pokemon, and so, James Beck and I are starting up a series. I'm starting up an individual series there as well, so if you could go check that channel out and give it a, subscription if you're interested in the content, it would mean a lot to me, so I've linked that in the description below as well. But let's start the new ranked season. I already played a couple games, so trying to get to Master Ball tier today. We'll see how it goes, but either way, looking forward to playing a few more with this incredibly consistent team. First game of the day, and I believe this is the Dialga Calyrex Shadow Rider team we featured a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember the exact sets, honestly. It's already been so long since we've used it. So, Venusaur is okay here, but it struggles against Dialga, although I can Max Quake it. Yeah, Torkoal's interesting here. It's actually not that strong. But I guess getting a Yawn off could be really valuable, right? Trick Room is also a possibility. I really wish I remember the sets of this team. I honestly don't at all. So, I could just go Torkoal, Venusaur, Zacian, Kyogre. Because, the thing is that this team is really good at deterring Regielekis from... And so if my opponent doesn't bring Regieleki, Zacian and Kyogre shouldn't really struggle too much here. Another approach could have been, Dynamax Landorus, set up Tailwind, and then you try to use Max Landorus, but you have to worry about a couple of things, like Will-O-Wisp from Calyrex. And I feel like Venusaur here overall is pretty strong, especially because Vine Lash is just really consistent as an option against my opponent's composition as well. So, we'll see. That is going to be Landorus and Calyrex. Okay. So Torkoal's in a weird spot to start this game. But it's do we think that the Landorus is actually going to click Earth Power into it? I could obviously just protect Torkoal on turn 1. I could just Vine Lash the Landorus slot immediately. You could consider maxing Landorus here. I think I'm honestly down for Yawn turn 1, max, and then just Vine Lash into Calyrex. Basically, the idea is to get rid of Calyrex as quickly as possible. Calyrex is just kind of annoying to fight against here. Kyogre and Zacian are both fairly strong against the Landorus here. And I'm going for Yawn because I think there's a world in which my opponent maxes Landorus and doubles up onto Venusaur on turn 1, but in that case, I would trade Venusaur for Calyrex, I'd get Vine Lash up, and I would get a Yawn off into the Landorus slot, right? So, I think part of the thing about using something like Venusaur or Charizard or Blastoise in this format is, identifying when it's worth it to actually make really aggressive trades, right? Normally it doesn't feel great to just lose your max Pokemon after one turn, but sometimes it can be worth it, right? Especially if you're getting rid of your opponent's restricted. They are going to commit the Dynamax, okay. I mean, it also could just be max Calyrex and then max Psychic Venusaur, and then Earth Power into Torkoal. But they're going to max Landorus, okay. Maybe I should have played around the max Calyrex option a little bit more. Like, I was expecting them to do this and, you know, double up onto the Venusaur slot, but I think max Calyrex actually would have been a really strong option for them because they had the potential to maybe one-shot both of my Pokemon, and that's really bad. Beautiful. Vine Lash will KO the Calyrex after Residual. That's one of the really nice things about having the Life Orb here on Venusaur. Yep, it's just an Astral Barrage. I don't even know if Rockfall gets this knockout onto Torkoal. It does, okay. I was like, if we hung on there, that would have been super clutch. But this Torkoal does have special defense investment, not defense investment, so we will lose it here. That's okay though, right? Like, I don't lose my restricted Pokemon, and my opponent's going to lose their Calyrex immediately, and now I just get a free switch into Zacian, right? So now with Zacian, I can just threaten the Landorus with the Behemoth Blade, and there's not really too much that can stop that. Okay. I could also bring out Kyogre immediately here. But Zacian has a little bit more offensive pressure. The problem with Kyogre is then Landorus actually outspeeds both of my Pokemon. But the Rockfall is nice here because it means that my Venusaur doesn't just outspeed my opponent's entire team, right? And a faster Venusaur here would be really, really scary for them to go up against. But, yep, it's just Dialga coming out. Okay. With Dialga coming out, then, I think here it's pretty safe to just click Behemoth Blade onto the Landorus slot. And max Quake into Dialga. I could angle for a substitute here, right? But I like the idea of ensuring that Landorus can't get an attack off against me right now. But I think if I were my opponent choose, I'd personally max guard and then try to attack the Zacian slot. But I'm okay covering for this. Okay, there's max Quake. That almost just one-shots Dialga, oh my goodness. Dialga's actually going to feint after Vine Lash. We've gotten so much value out of Residual in this game because it helped us finish off Calyrex and finish off Dialga. And they just go for Earth Power here, but we'll survive that, especially thanks to the special defense boost. Yep. So this was a pretty fast-paced game. I think it was one in which Venusaur in itself was just really strong. I think one of the things about using both Landorus and Dialga is that, you know, like, this team relies more on maxing Dialga, but from my opponent's, you know, position, I can see why they maybe didn't feel super comfortable doing so. Like, you're staring down a Landorus-T, Venusaur, both of those can max Quake, as well as a Kyogre. And I think this is one of the classic things where, like, turn 1 goes well for my opponent, but there's not much to stop Zacian, right? This is why Zacian in itself is such a strong Pokemon in this form, because it can just absolutely crush, like, so many different options. So we can just Behemoth Blade now into the Landorus and Vine Lash into Azumarill. And so, like, basically, yeah, turn 1 maybe is an okay trade if you're from my opponent's position, right? But the thing is, then you just full to Zacian immediately afterwards. And there weren't really too many ways to stop Zacian after Calyrex went down. Like, that's why I was, you know, aggressively targeting that down. And I think, though, where, you know, even though this game worked out really well for us, things actually could have gone pretty poorly if Calyrex maxes turn 1, and if they have max Mindstorm, they max Mindstorm the Venusaur and Earth Power into the Torkoal slot. So I'm not actually sure I love my play, even though, you know, it felt like a pretty convincing victory. This could have played out completely differently if the Dynamax went the other way on turn 1. But I don't know. I never want to click Sleep Powder on Venusaur with the lead unless I absolutely have to there. So then the other question is, okay, how could I have led better against Landorus plus Calyrex Shadow Rider? And given the 4 that my opponents brought, like, the answer is Tornadus plus Kyogre in my eyes, right? Because I can just go for Tailwind Water Spout on turn 1 with very, 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 very little counterplay from the opposing side. So, you know, it's always helpful to think how you can approach a matchup differently, because even if you know, have a really convincing win, sometimes all it takes is one different play or one different Dynamax to completely turn the tables. But Venusaur and Torkoal just, you know, is a super strong combination for us there. And once again, that's one of the nice things about this team. Like, you don't have to commit a restricted slot and bring Groudon to set up the Sun. Instead, Torkoal does the work for you, so then you have both Kyogre and Zacian in the end game. So, yeah. Either way, though, let's just look for another. Alright, next game here, and we're up against the very, very classic Zacian Kyogre comp. What is the absolute, like, objective best for here? Because I feel like, you know, I'm always like, do I bring Torkoal and Venusaur? It's the Zapdos that scares me a little bit, because Zapdos is pretty powerful into both of these, right? So that actually makes me want to play towards Landorus a little bit more. I think the reality of this matchup is that all of our Pokemon are decent, right? For example, if I want to aggressively target Zapdos down in the early game, I could go with something like Landorus plus Zacian. Tornadus does have Tailwind, Icy Wind support. Yeah, the problem is not knowing the kind of Zapdos set on the opposing side. I might still play towards Venusaur here, though. What do I want to drop is the thing. Because without having as much experience here, I actually, like, don't feel... I'm interested in Kyogre as a lead, as crazy as that seems. Okay, this probably isn't the right way to play this team, but I want to try it out. I want to go with Kyogre, Venusaur lead, and then Torkoal, Zacian in the back. The logic here is that Kyogre is actually a pretty strong max option, especially into potential max Zapdos from the opposing end, and I can use Venusaur as bait then. But this is one of those matchups where I think all of our Pokemon are actually really strong here, and I'm sure there is like a correct kind of line to take against this team just because it is really standard, but I'm trying something different here. It's going to be Grimm and Zacian, okay. So if it's Grimm, Zacian, what do I think is going to be in the back? I would expect Zapdos plus Kyogre, personally. Turn 1's already pretty interesting, right? Because, like, one play I can make is pivot my Kyogre out into Torkoal, Max Venusaur, Flare into their Zacian. But I have to worry about Trick, Lagging Tail coming out from this right now. I can't protect Venusaur here, and but I don't want to max it either, is the thing. Okay, I'm actually down to Water Spout and Sleep Powder here on turn 1. Origin Pulse is probably more consistent there, but I could see my opponent going all in and just trying to target Venusaur down. But they go for Play Rough. Okay, they missed Thunder Wave, actually. This is the saddest Water Spout you'll ever see in your life. But basically the logic there is that I could have seen my opponent doubling up onto Venusaur with the Thunder Wave combination. We get pretty lucky, obviously, avoiding there. Water Spout literally does no damage there. So that was kind of a little risky turn 1 there, but it's okay. I'm gonna Origin Pulse here. Now I know you have Thunder Wave. I want to be a little bit more careful. I don't even have a Thunder Wave switch in, though, is the awkward thing. But I have to max Venusaur in this matchup at this point, surely. What if I just max this turn, actually? Like, Origin Pulse? Max? And then we can Quake to get a special defense boost. I think that's actually acceptable here. Yeah, that was not exactly a great turn 1 on my end here. So, like, what would have been great against the Grimmsnarl Zacian lead? The main thing is not knowing the kind of Grimm that my opponent's running, whether it's, you know, Trick, Lagging Tail, or Iron Ball. Because basically I'm really hesitant to commit a Dynamax here until I can figure out what kind of Grimmsnarl set it is. Tornadus Kyogre, not really super strong here. Oh, cool. They actually just go for Light Screen rather than a Thunder Wave. Okay. I think we might still get the knockout onto Zacian, but I guess we'll see. I'd have to hit Origin Pulse, so if we miss, I'm definitely not KOing. Even if we hit, I'm not 100% sure we get this. It's close. I would expect it to, but this is the downside of me clicking Water Spout last turn rather than Origin Pulse. We are going to miss here, but that's fine. They missed Thunder Wave earlier, so I can't really be too upset about that. This next turn is scary, though, because it's basically a question of, like, do I bet let they wake up, and then you Thunder Wave plus Behemoth Blade Venusaur? Because I think what I want to do here is actually Origin Pulse and Max Guard. Because that's what I would do if I were my opponent, try to just, like, get rid of Venusaur ASAP. We're gonna Max Guard here. Okay, they just go for Reflect, that's fine. So T-Wave, dual screens, yeah, probably Light Clay then. Okay, Zacian stays asleep. Origin Pulse is going to double connect this time around. Cool. It did so much to Grimmsnarl there that I am fairly sure we'll still get the knockout onto Zacian even with Light Screen here. Beautiful. Okay, so that's a double KO, and I have Weather Control. So, we can use that towards our advantage. Like I said, I was expecting Zapdos Kyogre in the back, and if that's the case, I think that's pretty strong for me, because you might actually even be forced to max the Kyogre in that position, which is kind of awkward. Yep. Let's see if Zapdos is the last one. It's Incineroar! Wow, see, it's funny, because I was so scared of Zapdos this entire time, and they didn't even end up having it. That actually makes me feel a little bit better about the Thunder Wave miss, in the sense that I think that, like, Zapdos in the back with Thunder Wave would have been a lot worse. As in, I think even if Thunder Wave had connected, like, this is manageable. Well, we definitely want to get Vine Lash off, right? At this point, you expect Fake Out into the Kyogre slot. Fake Out into Kyogre. I mean, I feel like it's fine to go for a Protect here. I mean, with their Pokemon selection here, we actually should just win. Because Zacian Behemoth Blade plus Vine Lash here should just KO Kyogre, so I don't think my opponent can win, actually. I'm not sure if Protect was the correct play here, though. I think maybe I would have preferred to switch Kyogre out into Torkoal here. You know what else I could have done, by the way? I could have gone for Max Geyser here onto the Incineroar slot. I just wanted to get Vine Lash off, but I think Geyser actually isn't necessarily a bad play. But I think we're so far ahead, honestly, that it doesn't really matter. I guess I should keep in mind that they do have both screens up right now, though, right? And if this is Policy Kyogre, they could still actually very easily win. Okay. Yeah, Vine Lash up. And I'm at +1 special defense as well. They actually just go for a Geyser. Interesting. Okay. Into the Kyogre slot. Yeah, that makes sense. Basically, what that play does is if I don't protect with Kyogre there, Fake Out KOs me, and then Geyser gets redirected into Venusaur. If I switch Kyogre out into Torkoal, you punish the Torkoal switch in really heavily. But by not going for that now, we're in pretty good shape. So basically, like, the main thing I'm trying to think about right now is how I can win without, like, missing attacks. Because the thing is, Venusaur post-max can actually miss a fair amount, right? But I think it's fine to just go into Zacian here. Maybe going to Torkoal was actually fine as well. Because the thing is, I'm not sure +1 Sacred Sword KOs Incineroar right now. And I have a special defense boost here on the Venusaur still. And I have Behemoth Blade as well. How could I lose this? If I switch Venusaur out into Torkoal... Venu out into Torkoal... And then you... Geyser, Flare Blitz, Zacian... I think I'm down for sub here. Stall to turn to max, get more Vine Lash damage off. Sub Leaf Storm into Kyogre. Torkoal always wins against Incineroar in the 1v1. Oh, they try to max guard, even better for us. Nice. Basically, the logic here is that, like, the rain is up, right? So Flare Blitz should never KO Zacian. So the worst case would have been maybe max Hailstorm onto Venusaur for a KO, Flare Blitz, Zacian, break sub. But then I bring in Torkoal, and then I can just protect. So they're going to Flare Blitz into Venusaur. Cool. And the rain is just so strong for us here. So yeah, I was fully expecting my opponent to have Zapdos as their final one, but I think because they brought Incineroar over Zapdos, this endgame is actually tougher for them. Because like Kyogre as a max option is not super strong for them into the team that we're using. Especially with me, you know, giving heavy priority towards Venusaur here. So now I can just Sacred Sword into the Incineroar slot. That should guarantee us a KO. Yeah, I don't mind just clicking Leaf Storm here, because basically, like, even if you KO'd the Venusaur here, yeah, I would just get Torkoal in, set up the Sun, and Kyogre's never beating the Zacian from that position. So we did get fairly lucky with the Thunder Wave miss early on the Venusaur, but I think the main thing is that, like, I was able to actually just get 2 knockouts immediately in the game, and then forcing my opponent to bring down their final 2 Pokemon, right? And like, screens isn't that helpful when you have Vine Lash damage, and you know, I did get pretty lucky surviving the play rough and my opponent missing Thunder Wave on turn 1. So I'm not sure I actually feel super happy about how I played the opening of this game, but you know, ended up working out okay. The scary thing is, yeah, I was really nervous about playing around the Zapdos, and I was also really worried about Trick Lagging Tail Grim as well as Trick Iron Ball, and really just any, you know, Trick variant on Grimmsnarl. So I feel really nervous committing a Dynamax on turn 1 of the battle, because if I do and they trick a Lagging Tail onto whatever I'm maxing, it's really, really bad for me, in my opinion. So, yeah. Tornadus Kyogre is interesting, but they could still Thunder Wave play rough my Kyogre, for example. You know, and turn 1, like, once again, the logic behind clicking Water Spout there is if my opponent goes all in on trying to beat Venusaur, expecting Kyogre to switch out into Torkoal, I can take advantage of that. So, yeah, let's look for another. Ooh, a third game here, and it's Calyrex-Zacian with Lapras, Raichu, Clefairy, and Whimsicott. So seeing this, what do I expect? Policy Lapras? Maybe Perish Song? They have Whimsicott, Zacian, Calyrex, right? So they'll likely have the speed advantage. Landorus is okay against that core. I feel like if with my opponent's team, though, it's interesting, right? Because it feels like you're maxing Lapras pretty much every game. And if we're expecting max Lapras, you know, like Venusaur, Torkoal, Zacian's all pretty solid here. But I think the interesting debate in this game is whether or not I bring Kyogre. It's really strong to, you know, Zacian, Calyrex damage-wise, but it's very, very weak into the, very, very weak into the Lapras. I essentially can't really do anything against it. So I think here I like the Tornadus Venusaur lead with Torkoal Zacian. Like, I'm willing to drop a restricted in this matchup because Kyogre doesn't have Thunder. If I had Thunder, I'd consider bringing in a little bit more. But the problem here is that Kyogre, if it's using a water type attack, it's always going to be a spread type attack, right? Meaning that if Lapras is out on the field, I'm only going to benefit the Lapras, right? Now, with Lapras, like, Venusaur in itself is already pretty good into it. We should expect weakness policy, though, so that's one thing to be careful about. Like, I might want to actually go for Max Quake in the early turns to get special defense boosts. Because the thing about playing around Lapras is, like, you should expect it to survive and get screens up, right? And you should expect it to have policy as well. So what I would ideally want to do is, like, stall out their Dynamax and then Vine Lash on the last turn of their max. Or even ideally, like, after, you know, their max is over. But I think it'll be kind of hard to stall out the game to that kind of state. So the idea behind leading Tornadus is I can just pressure with Tailwind immediately, which helps out against, you know, the Whimsicott and the Calyrex and whatnot. They're just going to go with Lapras and Raichu here, which I'm okay with. So basically, the turn one I want to go for here is Protect Tornadus and Max Quake onto Raichu. What they could do, though, is Self-Volt Switch, activate Policy, and then just Resonance into Venusaur. That could be a little scary. The other play is Fake Out Tornadus and then Resonance. So turn 1 in itself is actually pretty interesting because I could just click Icy Wind with Tornadus immediately, which would cover for the Self-Volt Switch play, but I think that's a little bit risky because then you leave yourself open to a Sleep Powder potentially from Venusaur, but maybe my opponent just says, there's no way you're going to click Sleep Powder in front of a Raichu with Fake Out pressure. So this generally works. The only thing I'm nervous about here is, yeah, the Volt Switch into policy play here. Even if they do that, I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's not going to be good for me, especially if it actually means Venusaur faints here. So, yep, Lapras is going to max. It's cool to see Lapras, by the way. Like, this Pokemon, you know, was actually really good with the Gigantamax version throughout so much of Sword and Shield. And when we had the one restricted format, like Lapras-Zacian was an incredible duo. But in a dual restricted format, it's a little bit harder because, like, it relies on maxing, and there are just so many good max options in this format. But against the team we're using here, I actually think it's quite powerful. So it's really cool to see it here. Okay, beautiful. They go for the Fake Out. Okay, this should put us in a really good spot already, and I think essentially what I want to do in this game, like I mentioned, is just not activate a potential weakness policy for my opponent until I absolutely have to. I could just go for it this next turn, which is interesting, but I think this next turn I prefer to just Tailwind and Max Quake the Raichu slot. Because the thing is, Lapras without policy is just really not that good. And it's even weaker if I have special defense boosts, right? Yeah, and they double up onto Tornadus. Beautiful. That did a fair amount of damage even with the special defense boost. 43. Okay. You get screens up now. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, we can go for Tailwind now. I think Tailwind and then just going for Vine Lash here onto Raichu is acceptable to me. Based off how much they did to Tornadus, I actually want them to get a knockout onto that ideally, because then it gives me a free switch in. And if they target the Venusaur slot, that's fine. I have a special defense boost, I'm not taking that much. It does feel really painful to Vine Lash something that's at 1 HP, but in this case, I think it's worth it because I, once again, just don't want to accelerate Lapras' damage output right now and potentially give it the weakness policy boost, right? And, like, maybe it's not weakness policy, but we didn't see a Life Orb either, so I just, you know, really want to assume it is. Yep, and they Resonance into Venusaur. Nice. Okay, we get our residual damage. And the nice thing about staggering the residual damage this way is that Lapras has to take, you know, multiple turns of residual outside of Dynamax. Oh, Whimsicott coming in here is interesting. Okay. Could be Fake Tears, Tailwind, Switcheroo. I mean, I'm down for an Icy Wind here. I think it's actually better to just go for Hurricane, right? If I hit it, they're just really done for. Whereas I don't think Icy Wind plus Quake even does enough, so I'd rather take a 70% chance to get a KO versus a 0% chance. And we'll get another special defense boost to help survive against Lapras. And they go for their own Tailwind, that's fine. Okay. Do miss Hurricane, that's fine. Get Max Quake off, get another special defense boost. Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting Whimsicott in the back here. I thought it would just be Calyrex plus Zacian, but Whimsicott might actually help them because it gives them better speed control, and if they can look to stall out my Tailwind, then they'll actually be in a pretty good spot. There's Resonance onto Tornadus. Still gets the KO, actually, even after the second special defense boost. Okay, I think it was kind of close there. They were doing 43 earlier. Yeah, but it's fine. It's just a free switch into Zacian now for me. What do I think my opponent's going to have in the back, though? Calyrex or Zacian? It's got to be Calyrex, right? I think Calyrex is way stronger than Zacian for them here. Missing that Hurricane actually does sting a good amount, because if we hit that, then what I could have done was just bring in Torkoal and then just, you know, get the KO onto their Zacian, if they had that. And if there was Calyrex, then just, you know, Leaf Storm it or fish for Sleep Powder. I still have 2 turns of Tailwind on myself, though, which is good. Yeah, I'm down to go for the knockout onto Lapras here. Try to force it out of the game and get my opponent down to their final Pokemon. Because, like, Whimsicott's not super relevant here damage-wise, and I don't have to care about policy when I can just KO you. Lapras, of course, could opt for a Protect here, but I don't think Whimsicott's really doing much, and if you Protect Lapras, you're only stalling out your own Tailwind right now. Of course, you're stalling out my Tailwind as well, but that's okay. Even if Whimsicott has Charm or Light Screen here... Well, actually, I don't see why you have Light Screen with Lapras on the team. But yeah. Okay, Lapras, let's go for Protect, that's fine. Essentially, we're doing the classic, like, okay, you have Whimsicott on the field, what does that actually do for you right now, right? You're not going to do any damage with it, so I can just keep targeting around you. Do I think Leaf Storm's just going to KO Lapras here? Probably not. Another interesting thing to think about is I am actually at +2 special defense. Last turn of Aurora Veil and Vine Lash. Like, do I have to click? I don't want to rely on Sleep Powder right now, that's for sure. Yeah, I will just go for Leaf Storm here. I was thinking about Earth Power, but I don't know how well Lapras takes this. They actually just go for a double, okay. Or Sacred Sword. Oh, that actually just gets the KO in itself, okay. Maybe we're giving too much credit to Lapras and its potential bulk there. They Moonblast into Zacian, yep. Okay. And this is a pretty sad Leaf Storm. If I'd clicked Icy Wind earlier, it would have been guaranteed damage, and then maybe Whimsicott faints from Earth Power. So I'm mainly curious about what their final Pokemon is here right now. Calyrex, I think, is the scary one. Zacian doesn't scare me as much. It's actually Zacian. Okay, cool. Given the Zacian here, Torkoal is actually super good against my opponent right now. Especially thanks to Burning Jealousy. Oh, wow. They actually were Light Clay on the Lapras. So I spent this whole time playing around Policy, but it was Light Clay. That's cool. Last turn of Tailwind on their end. I'm taunted still. Got Torkoal in the back. Does Behemoth Blade KO my Zacian? We do have some bulk here, so I wouldn't expect it to. So I'm now to just Behemoth Blade into Whimsicott and Sleep Powder into Zacian. Basically, what I'm saying here is, okay, even if you KO my Zacian, I can just put you to sleep, but they're just going to go for Blade, okay? I'd expect this to go into the Zacian slot. Yep. I expect to survive. That was dangerously close, but yep. Okay, they do double up onto my Zacian, but I think it's fine because Torkoal should win us the game now. Unless I miss Sleep Powder here. But it is going to connect. I mean, this turn was interesting, right? Because I, of course, could have protected and then, like, switched out. Maybe that was more optimal. Like, I hate that I was in a position where I had to rely on Sleep Powder hitting here. But my play covered for... Even if I miss Sleep Powder there, like, Torkoal can still win in itself, right? Because of Burning Jealousy. But basically, I'd bring Torkoal out. I think we'd actually still win, even if we miss. Because then, basically, Whimsicott is the Tailwind. You have to Behemoth Blade Venusaur, and I just Burning Jealousy from that position. And then Torkoal should win against Whimsicott Zacian. Unless Burning Jealousy doesn't KO, you know, Whimsicott thanks to screens. But now I can just Weather Ball. I'm just going to go for the knockout on Whimsicott, because I don't know the rest of its moves. Zacian opts to... Oh, interesting. Okay, Whimsicott did not try to Tailwind there. But we're at -2 and they have screens up, so I don't expect Weather Ball to KO here, but it actually is enough still. Cool. Yeah, I think you can see how much respect I showed Lapras this game, though, right? They didn't even end up being weakness policy, but I just wanted to, you know, assume that they were until I saw otherwise. But, you know, the main thing is that when you bring Raichu, Whimsicott, Lapras, you don't have as much offense. And I think if they had Calyrex over Zacian here and they're in the back, they would have had a better shot at winning too. Because late game, Astral Barrage spam under Tailwind is really, really scary here. But yeah, fortunately for us, it was Zacian over Calyrex. So, cool to see the return of Lapras though. It's been a while since we fought against it. So, Venusaur will get the Weather Ball off here. In the sun against Zacian, not enough for a KO, but that's fine. Burning Jealousy will finish it off. Even if they were to wake up, crit Sacred Sword onto Torkoal, we'd still win the game, because another Weather Ball just KOs. But then I guess your win con theoretically, even with the crit Sacred Sword, I don't think it ever KOs Torkoal, to be honest. So, Burning Jealousy gets the KO, or sorry, Behemoth Blade gets the KO, but Burning Jealousy should finish things off here. And this is the strength of Torkoal. I wish we could have shown like Torkoal getting a burn onto Zacian, because that's like one of the best strengths about it is when you're out on the field, your opponent can never really safely switch in Zacian, because if it does, they not only take a significant amount of damage, but also get burnt, thus, you know, making it relatively useless. But I think the main thing here is that we were able to at least stall out Lapras' Dynamax. But I think, you know, I showed him maybe too much respect in this game, like Fear of Policy, as I mentioned, but maybe I didn't actually be that scared of it. Sacred Sword also just did so much more than I expected it to. Like, I doubled up on Slot Slap that turn, not confident to even get the KO, but this is Admin Zacian we're using, so should have just been a little bit more confident in my Zacian's damage output. With that, then, it's like, then maybe I could just go for Vine Lash, because it's like, okay, well, even activating Policy, the Zacian can just come in and deal with you pretty easily, both inside of Dynamax, because I can Behemoth Blade you, or outside of Dynamax. So, yeah, but cool to go up against the Lapras. I'd already played some games before starting recording today's episode, so with that win, we actually got to Master Ball tier, so yeah, figured we'd look for one final battle here, since I haven't posted in a couple of days, so yeah, let's look for one more. Ooh, final one of the day, and this is pretty similar to a team that got top 8 at NAIC, used by a player called Terran, who's super, super strong from Europe. Main difference is there's an Indeedee here, but yeah, the idea is that, you know, like Charizard can take advantage of Sun. Thundurus just is inherently powerful. Generally, when I try to fight against Thundurus, I try to burn it with Burning Jealousy, so I go with like Venusaur, Torkoal lead, but the thing is that Whimsicott Charizard is really scary from their end. So who do I want to max? I mean, I lean towards Landorus here. Whimsicott Thundurus scares me the most, though. Can I even get Tailwind up in this game? I have Icy Wind, so I feel like I should play towards Tornadus. Okay, I'm actually just going to go Tornadus, Landorus, Zacian, and Kyogre. It's normally really risky to just lead Landorus in front of a Thundurus, but this is bulky Landorus. So the logic is I have Icy Wind on Tornadus, so what I can do is like Icy Wind max Airstream turn 1 and then Tailwind turn 2. And I think I'm willing to actually activate Defiant here because of what I have in the back. But they go with Whimsicott Kyogre, which is probably less than ideal here. Venusaur would have been really good with Tornadus here, but I didn't feel super comfortable leading it given both Thundurus and Charizard on my opponent's team. So this is just a good job of my opponent to identify, hey, I can just lead Kyogre here. And I didn't bring Venusaur into the battle, so this is already looking really challenging. I was hoping they would try to counter Venusaur with Thundurus or Charizard. Okay, Kyogre here maybe goes for Geyser or Hailstorm onto Landorus. It could also be Trick Room Whimsicott. I mean, if it's Trick Room, how do I even beat that? I went for Tailwind U-turn, but I don't think that's ever the correct play here. The problem is... I mean, this also could be Scarf Kyogre. If it's Scarf Kyogre, I think I'm just completely done for. Oh, gosh. I'm also... Yeah, the Landorus isn't fast here, right? Yeah. This is just, like, me not having a good lead. The correct play then, I think... Like, I lost so much on turn 1 that I don't think I can come back in this battle already. And it was bad of me to, like, lead slow Landorus here into Kyogre, because I can just get outsped by it. So it didn't even need Scarf to outspeed me. Basically, I think the right play there was Icy Wind max Airstream turn 1, because I'd survive Water Spout at least, then Tailwind max Quake turn 2. Even then, though, it's difficult. I'd say I lost this mainly off really poor Pokemon selection in terms of the leads. Is there any way I can win this now? It's looking really tough. I mean, that was just literally the worst possible turn 1 I could have had. Like, that's why Tailwind, like, I think, yeah, part of the other thing is I'm used to playing with the faster Landorus there, so in my head I was like, oh, you know, I'll be able to just U-turn out, but the Landorus on this team is really quite slow. And the bulk is really helpful in so many matchups, but I used it incorrectly here. But yeah, to my opponent's credit, you know, they just went with Whimsicott Kyogre, because, like, one of my favorite leads with this team is Tornadus Venusaur or Torkoal Zacian in the back, but I was just like, how do I beat Thundurus and Charizard effectively, Landorus, and my opponent recognized that, so... Sometimes Pokemon is a game in which just one really strong team preview phase can give you a huge edge. I don't even see any creative ways to get back into this game after that turn 1. That was just bad lead into the worst possible play I could have made on turn 1. And I think that turn is interesting, right? Because it shows you why EV spreads in themselves can make a big difference in Pokemon, right? If I have a faster Landorus there relative to Kyogre, turn 1 plays out completely differently, right? At least I'm able to pivot out, break a sash on Whimsicott. The thing is, even if if I'm faster there, like, what I did still isn't really that powerful, right? Like, I should definitely be clicking Icy Wind. Like, Icy Wind max Airstream makes sense as a potential play there, for example. I basically went for what I think was the worst possible option. And I think it was like one of those, oh, I'm already in a bad situation. Like, I don't see a very clear path to getting out of it safely. And that's why leads in Pokemon alone can be such a big deal. Oh, they weren't Sash on Whimsicott either. That's a waste of a potential max. I was basically trying to think if I could do anything funky with Dynamaxing Tornadus and max Airstreaming with it, but I would have needed to protect Tornadus Ice Beam into Whimsicott here, and then max Tornadus, like max Airstream Water Spout next turn. Yeah, I mean, this game isn't 100% over, but the thing is that they have a Dynamax, right? And it's going to be Thundurus, Charizard, Zacian, you know, a combination of those in the back, and all of those are just so strong. And if I'd actually clicked Icy Wind into max Airstream turn 1, turn 2 Tailwind, max whatever, like Rockfall, Thundurus, or Charizard, or Quake, Zacian, and we would have been in a much better spot. So it was still, like, totally doable, even with the subpar lead, but I just had to max Landorus on turn 1. That was a very, very ambitious U-turn, and I get punished because, yeah, the Landorus is just slower than Kyogre here, which shouldn't be shocking, but at the same time, yeah, I'd actually be very surprised if Zacian or Kyogre was slower there, I suppose, right? Because it's like, would you really run that little speed investment? Now, they have their own Tailwind, so maybe, but Hail is up. I don't know who's faster between the Kyogre or Zacians. Their Kyogre is faster than mine. I can protect Geyser. I mean, basically this turn I need to protect one Pokemon and attack with the other, right? I think it might have been better to just... the thing is, like... What, win a speed tie between the Zacians or just be faster? And then Behemoth Blade their Zacian maybe could have worked? I'm wondering what their last one was. It might not have been... It might be... Would it really be Indeedee? Because, like, Thundurus or Charizard as the final one would be interesting. But I think Charizard as their fourth makes sense, because then if I bring Torkoal or Venusaur, you can take advantage of it, and then you can just look towards maxing Charizard instead, after getting Tailwind up with Whimsicott. Yep, they Blade here. I wonder if they doubled up into it. We do survive. Nicely played. I mean, I could have done something there with Max Guard and Behemoth Blade into Kyogre then, right? Max Guard, Behemoth Blade into Kyogre, then the next turn Behemoth Blade, and then just Max Geyser into their Zacian. But yeah, I just got pretty cleanly outplayed in this one. But I think this game is a good example of how team preview in itself is really like important in this game, right? My opponent didn't, like, Thundurus or Charizard never even hit the field. I don't know if my opponent even brought them in this battle, but just the threat of them alone meant that I, like, had a lot less confidence leading Venusaur, right? Because it's hard to feel good leading Tornadus Venusaur into, like, a Whimsicott Thundurus or Whimsicott Charizard combination here. If I had to bet, like, I am very curious in their last one. Yeah, if I had Max Guarded last turn and Behemoth Blade is a 2-hit KO onto their Kyogre, which I'd expect it to be, this actually still could have been pretty winnable. It depends on how bulky their Zacian is. Like, would you survive a Max Geyser from my Kyogre outside of Rain? And I survived a Blade from them, but I wonder if I could have one-shot in return. Okay. Yeah, we did get the KO as well. Given that, then, like, I actually could have just Max Guarded Bladed the Zacian last turn as well. But it's essentially, like, I have to call correctly on who they might want to target, right? And if I were in my opponent's shoes, I actually wouldn't have even doubled up. I would have just split their damage. I think them doubling up actually gave me a window of opportunity to come back into it, but unfortunately I didn't protect the right Pokemon there. So we'll never find out what the last one was, but yeah. I think, like, this is one of the reasons why this archetype is strong, right? Because it's like, you see Charizard and Thundurus in Team Preview, and as a Venusaur player, you're a lot less inclined to just lead that comfortably. If they don't have one of the two, I'd maybe feel a little bit more comfortable going for it. I think the other thing is I can't lead Torkoal or Venusaur easily in this game because they also have Kyogre, right? So it's like, okay, well, if normally my strategy against Thundurus would be, oh, let me switch Venusaur out into Zacian, bait out Max Airstream, burn you with Burning Jealousy. Can't really go for that nearly as easily in a matchup like this. So, yeah. Anyway, though, I think a bunch of, ways I could have adjusted in that. If I were to play that again, I would consider just leading Tornadus with Venusaur this time around. That would have been really strong into my opponent's specific lead. I would consider maxing Landorus on turn 1 and going for Icy Wind Airstream onto Whimsicott. The scary thing is that I Tailwind and then Whimsicott's Trick Room there, I also probably just lose the game immediately. So sometimes you just, have to take those gambles in best of one. But, yeah. Anyway, it feels really good to be back, so thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. Alright, peace.